Uh,
Um, dang.
Woohoo!
Well,
Recording in
anyways,
progress. Okay,
I
so
already have
first,
dirt on Izzy, by the way, who's also running for committee chair, in case any of you are wondering.
oh, nice. Okay, let's get into that. First of all, let me welcome everyone to our second official
Annual.
workshop for the media. Um, we'll just assume everybody else is going to show up eventually, and we'll just go ahead and get started because it's going to be recorded. So even if you missed the first part, you can rewind and come back and watch it again. So this workshop is designed to cover the reporters and the cameramen. We're also going to report. We're also going to cover a few other little things too. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, Miriam. Welcome, James. All the people up in my Virginia people that I love. Okay, so just so we are going to remember or remind everybody, we've got 5 jobs in media. We've got the reporters, we've got the cameramen, which we don't have a camera anymore. Oh darn. Okay, well, you're with us in spirit, Miriam. I appreciate it. Cameramen, and those kind of form the most unique team or the most obvious team right there because they're going to be out there running around together. Then we have our writers and our anchor people who are kind of a good team also. Then we have our influencers who are kind of doing their own show and having fun that way. So those are our 5 things. And I was talking to Nathaniel earlier and he was asking me some questions and I thought I would just go ahead and go over those things. If you feel like Nathaniel, who he's like, I'm really into the editing, video editing is what I'm going to be doing. I don't really know about the other jobs or interested in the other jobs. Well, last week when we went over the jobs, we covered the fact that 90% of the time you're going to be doing your job plus overlapping a little bit of somebody else's job. If you can think about the team being everyone kind of has their point that they have to go and they know they have to cover that part. But when you come back to the station, everybody works together to make sure that everything happens. So if the cameraman is in charge of the editing, but he's out there doing a news story, then the writer, the anchor, or the influencer, if they're at the studio, can work on editing things as well. Make sense? So we're going to try to cross-pollinate skills. So let's say the reporter, and we only have one reporter, is AOL. They're at lunch, they're somewhere, they're not available. Then maybe the writer is going to have to go out with the cameraman. Do you see what I'm saying? So we need to be flexible and be able to know everybody's job and know what that entails so that if we have to do that, we can. Miriam, what you got?
Well, just saying that the editing takes a really, really long time, which is why it would be hard for it to be for an editor to have 2 jobs. Is because editing takes a lot of just sitting down for a really long time to edit a video.
So yes, that is true, but we're not editing huge long things. We're doing 30-second bits. They're gonna be short things. Like maybe when we do our debates and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Also remember,
even then, really small things take a long time.
well,
So
it depends. Here we are at Yes Week, and you know that we only have so much time to do so much. So whereas you may have this great idea and this grand idea, okay, I'm gonna do all of these things for this one little video, you don't have time to do that. The stories are moving and going, so your editing may be limited on what you can do because of the time that you have to do it. The other thing is that when I worked in the movie studio, we had different team members that did different things in the editing department. So we had our first handler, we had our second handler, then we had our third handler, and each editor had a different portion of the job that they did. So where one editor would be the first one to take the clips, cut them all up and label them, hand them off to the second one. The second one would be the one to put them in the order that they wanted to, do all the transitions, hand it off to the third one. So you guys could decide how you want to do that to make sure that one person isn't getting overwhelmed with sitting in the room the entire time editing all of the videos. That's why we're going to try to do our best to kind of like let that get spread out over the whole team. Number one, so that everybody can learn how to do all these cool stuff. Number two, so that no one person is so essential that if that person doesn't come or something happens to that person, who knows? There could be somebody assassinated. I didn't say that out loud. But that you guys will still have a team, still have a way to create what you need to create. Okay, so I don't want you to get stuck in the idea that, oh no, we've only got to do it this way. Because if you do that, you're not being flexible. You got to let it go and say, okay, well, this is what editing is. In this situation, what is it going to turn into being? Welcome, Nora. Okay, and Liza and Joy. Okay, all right, so we're going to start with And I'm gonna do some asking questions and answering questions and stuff like that later. I just wanted to kind of cover that a little bit so everyone's got the idea. Don't stick in your head, oh, I'm only gonna do this job, because you're probably not. Okay, there's gonna be lots of overlap. All right, let's talk about cinematography. Now, you guys, I don't know if any of you are aware, but let me introduce myself. I am Sonia Brooksby. I am the executive producer of Lightstone Studios, which is a movie studio. So when I talk about cinematography, I know what I'm talking about. I have done 9 movies, and they were on the BYU channel. There, you can buy them, and they're on Amazon Prime, I think. Anyway, so movies are out there. I did them. I worked on the sets. I tried to work at every single department so I would know how to do every single thing, and I could kind of use that knowledge. And so that's what I'm using going forward. We're going to talk about the camera person first. The camera person is essential when it comes to this media outlet, because everything that camera person captures is what the editors and the writers and the anchor person get to use from then that moment forward. So you can see how important the cameraman is. The reporter's important also, but if the cameraman isn't there, then you don't even see the reporter. Okay, so this is how important the cameraman is. It's not just the one person behind the camera, it's a lot more than that. So let's talk about a few things that the cameramen have to consider. The other thing is because it's a cameraman and reporter team, you have to know each other well enough to understand all of these aspects. So even if I'm the reporter and you're the cameraman, I have to know all these cinematography tricks so that I know where does he want me to stand, or where does she want me to stand? Where is the best place? If I stand directly in front and the cameraman has to kind of move to the side to look around me to see what's behind me, that's the story, then I'm not a good reporter, right? I should know to move to the side, and so that I'm on the third in the middle is the action, and the third on the side is space, right? You have to know your rule of thirds, all that kind of stuff. Is everyone following me? So the reporters also need to know this stuff really, really well so that they can help the cameraman and not be standing in way. Has anyone of you guys tried to record something and then someone keeps standing in the wrong spot and you're having to readjust and move and go around? That's what I'm talking about. Also lighting. If a reporter stands in a certain way that they have got all this backlighting come at them and their face is black, the cameraman can't do anything about that, except for just move. He has to just run around to the side and make them turn so that they're not directly facing or facing away from the sunlight, right? So just little things like that. All right, first we're going to talk about composition. The composition refers to how the elements are arranged within the frame. This is how we're talking about the rule of thirds. It involves the placement of subjects, objects, and backgrounds to create visually interesting and balanced shots. So we don't want to have one itty bitty reporter face over here and then a huge landscape. Does that make sense? Okay. Everyone nod. Yes. All right, lighting. Lighting is crucial in cinematography as it sets the mood, atmosphere, and tone of the scene. Cinematographers use various lighting techniques such as high-key lighting for bright and cheerful scenes, low-key lighting for dramatic and moody scenes, and natural lighting for a more realistic look. Obviously, when we are out and about, the lighting is what the lighting is, but you can angle yourself and stand in front of certain lights and stand away from other lights to make the lighting be what it is that you want to do. Just so you know, we're going to go through all of these different techniques, and then we're going to quickly go back through and talk about how these things can be deceptive. Okay. Camera movement. Camera movement adds dimension and visual interest to shots. Cinematographers use techniques like panning, tilts, dollies, cranes, and steady cams to move the camera smoothly and capture the action from different angles. I'll tell you, I tried using the dolly cam. It was so hard. And then also the cranes, my son actually built a crane to put one of the cameras on just for fun at home, and he had a blast, but they're really, really fun to use. Don't know if we'll have a chance to build a crane, but that would be super awesome if we could. All right, lens choice. Different lenses have distinct characteristics that affect the look and the feel of the image. Anyone who knows filters on your phone, those are a version of what the lens choices can do. They also, I know phones probably still have this, I'm pretty sure they still have this, like the wide angle lenses, exaggerating perspective, is also often used for landscapes to create a sense of intimacy with characters. Telephoto uses or lenses are used to compress the perspective. All right, the color palette. Another thing, you may not notice colors as distinctly, but when you're watching TV, there's very, very deliberate color choices that are made. Obviously, if you're reporting a scene, you're not going to be able to choose the colors that are behind you if it's part of the action. But if you are doing an interview with someone, you can tell them, please don't wear that hot pink shirt. See what I'm saying? Okay. All right, aspect ratio. Aspect ratio refers to the proportional relationship between the width and the height of the frame. So you guys recognize when you go to watch a movie at different aspect ratios will give you different feelings during the movie. And if you're really good, you'll watch some of these music videos that are produced nowadays and they change the aspect ratio to change the sentiment of the moment in the music videos or in some of the other videos that you're watching. But if you're really good, you'll start paying attention to and be able to see the different changes in the aspect ratio. So different aspect ratios invoke different visual experiences affecting the storytelling. For example, wider aspect ratios like 2.39.1 are often used for epic landscapes, action scenes, and narrower ratios like 1.85 colon 1 are used for dramas and comedies. They're more intimate and in your face. Okay. The shot types, various shot types such as close-ups, mediums, and wide shots are serve different purposes in storytelling. The purposes and convey different amounts of information to the audience. Cinematographers choose the appropriate shot type based on the scene's requirements and the story that they want to tell. So let's say you're going to, well, we'll come back to this when we do our how these things can be sneaky. Depth of field. Depth of field refers to the range of a distance in a scene that appears acceptably sharp. So cinematographers use aperture settings and lens choices to control the depth of field. Selectively focus on certain elements while blurring others. This technique helps guide the viewer's attention and create visual hierarchy within the frame. Okay, so those are just a few of the overall techniques. Now we're going to talk about how we can be sneaky within using those techniques. So composition. If we're going to look at a composition in a frame, is it possible that we could be showing part of a story and lying about the rest of the story? Using just composition in our camera angle. Is true or not true? I've already given you guys the answer. I've said every single one of these you can lie. So everyone say yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. You're all brilliant. All right. So let's figure out how we can lie using our composition. Let's say we're doing a story on a car accident and we focus on a mangled piece of a car, just a very, very close angled piece of a car. And that's the only thing that you see. And we say it was a horrible accident. There was injuries and the reporter's, distraught and telling this story. And then if you were to really zoom out, which is again, kind of like camera angle also, zoom out, you would see it was just a fender bender. And the only thing that was destroyed on the car was just a little piece of the fender. Composition is important. Lighting. Okay, so why is lighting important? I know all of you guys know this answer, so I'm just going to tell it to you out loud. The lighting, like we said earlier, can change the mood of the shot. So it can either be super bright, super happy, or the lighting can be dark and it can be moody, or it can look really, really creepy. You can light somebody from underneath. It's like a Halloween trick, right? We all know to put the flashlight under our chin, right? So lighting can make somebody look a little creepy. So let's say you're going to interview someone and you do not believe in their economic policies and you're the reporter or the cameraman. Can you make that person look creepy even though they have no idea they look creepy? In the whole interview, they look creepy, right? So the power is in, thank you. Miriam, did you have something to say? Or are you just giving us a thumbs up? That's right. Okay. All right, camera movement. Camera movement is really important too, because if you are shaking the camera, if the camera is not steady, anyone seen the Witch Blair Project? I never watched the movie, but I know it was really popular and it started this creation where people were recognizing the importance of camera movement. And now they do all sorts of things and do the slow-mo with the shaking. So it feels very dreamlike. They have all sorts of different techniques with camera movement that really creates a sentiment. If I'm watching an interview and the camera movement is constantly doing this, what does it look like my interviewer is doing? Like fidgeting, right? Like you can just do something as simple as just moving the camera just a little bit each way. And then everyone that was watching that interview is like, wow, that guy can't sit still. That's really unfortunate. He must be lying. Do you see how that works? Everybody with me? Okay. All right, lens choice. Let's say we're going to do a interview, or we're going to do a, we talked about the car accident before, so you can focus in on just a little bumper, but we're going to do a lens choice. We're going to do a wide angle lens, and we're not going to capture the person's emotion because they're so small on the screen. All we're going to see is the beautiful landscape, and we're going to put some beautiful music behind, and you're not going to really hear the person's story. You're going to be seeing this whole picture instead of seeing them because they're so small. Because the lens choice. Color palette, same thing. You can use filters to create somebody who looks super pretty, or someone who looks really scary, or any and all of the above. So lots of things you can do with that. Aspect ratio, we talked about how it can make you feel more intimate if you use a shorter and smaller aspect ratio, or how it can feel very epic if you use a larger aspect ratio. Shot types also. Generally, okay, so I'm used to shot types for movies. And so in a movie, what they would do is they do an overall shot, right? And so that's a wide angle shot. So they can establish what the big picture is. So if you guys go watch a movie or a music video or something, you'll see that they'll do, the first shot they'll do is establishing what you're looking at. And then what they'll do after that is they'll go to a medium shot of the scene, conversation, or whatever action's happening. And then if they really want to get into an intimate moment because someone's crying, there's a lot of emotion, then they go to the tight and the one shot, right? The one person face shot. And then they go back and forth. So you can see the kind of the differences between the shots. So let's say someone's really emotional, but you don't want this audience to recognize and feel that emotion, you would pull it back, right? You would change your shot so that it's not an intimate shot with that person. It's more of it's a far away shot. You're creating physical distance between the emotion and the person watching this, right? All right, depth of field. How many of you guys ever watched Lord of the Rings? Does anybody watch the movies? Okay. They're not that small, the hobbits. They are actually really normal sized people. But what they did is it wasn't even CGI. They just did aspect ratio, or not aspect ratio. They did depth of field. So they put somebody in the front and then somebody else in the back. Now my hands are the same size, but one looks bigger than the other one. You see what I'm saying? That's aspect ratio. So you can, and you guys, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when you do selfies with other people, if you're the one taking the picture, your face is the closest to the camera, your face is the largest, which is why no Koreans, I know when in Korea, wanted to be the one holding the camera. They always wanted to be the one in the background, so their faces were smaller and they looked more attractive. So they already understand about aspect ratio or depth of field. So when you're doing depth of field, let's say you're interviewing two people, you can very easily set it so that one interviewer looks very big and imposing while the other one looks really small and diminutive. Make sense? Sneaky, but true. And does it happen? Yes, because Bonnie and I were talking even before our class about the 80s campaigns and how they specifically created one campaign, one politician to look very, very good and the other politician to look very bad, just by using camera shots and camera angles. So does anyone have any questions on camera stuff? I know I'm going through it super fast. And I'll probably give these papers so that everybody has all this information. Yes, Joy.
So it sounds like if we're talking about cinematography with fancy cameras, that we would need fancy cameras, but maybe some of the kids might ask, what cameras will we be using? Will we just be using phone cameras or like other kind of cameras?
So I have two DVR or TDR, whatever they're called. Anyway, I have two really nice cameras, and that I would be willing to give one to each of the media outlets if they're going to be very, very careful with them. They are not video cameras. They are They're
SLRs.
yeah, SLRs. So they have aspects for both. And that would probably be the best because you will be taking pictures and you will be videoing at the same time. So the quality is not as great, but it is pretty easy to get information off of those and edit and all that good stuff. So that's my guess, is I'll probably just bring those two. But I want everyone to know that you can do a lot of the stuff with your phone. Your phone has a lot of settings. It even has slow-mo settings that you can set things to do slow motion. Also, whatever your phone comes up with, your editors can do amazing things with. You can actually take a shot that is a wide angle and the editor can pull it all the way in, crop it, and then pull that subject out and make it into a medium or even a close-up just with editing alone. So don't think you're limited if you use your phone. You're not. They can filter, they can edit, they can crop, they can rotate, they can mirror images, they can do so much with whatever you guys bring. It won't even matter if you guys are just using your phones. Andrew.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know filming can all be like cropped and stuff, but sound's a big problem in videos. Since if we're gonna be far away, you're doing a wide shot. How do we get the sound?
So I have also, and I only have one, I have a speaker and microphone. And it's just a Bluetooth speaker that goes with a microphone. Anyone who's been to Yes Week has seen it. We've used it every single time for the last few years. That comes in really, really handy. You can give the speaker or the phone to the reporter, and the reporter can hand it to the person they're interviewing or use the one microphone. Then you can have the Bluetooth speaker with the cameraman. So any of the sound that's happening, even if it's way over there, will be definitely heard. So we can do that. I think for interviews and stuff, we'll have a more rigid and a more set up system, you know, with the microphones, with the podiums and things like that. So sound won't be a problem. But what you're talking about is when you're out running around and you're trying to capture sound, then that's when it could be a little bit more of an issue. My cameras do a pretty decent job videoing and picking up the audio also. And there is things that you can attach to it. It just gets a little, I think it's a little encumbersome. And so I haven't ever normally used it, but we did use it for the simulation, for the Supreme Court simulation, and it caught everything. So yeah, Joy.
I'm not sure about this. I can't promise, but my son Stuart, who is a videographer and goes out and does this, he probably has a little bit of equipment like that. And I don't know if he'd be willing to come to bring it, but that's something we can look into.
Yeah, I haven't actually gotten an email out to him yet because I do need to talk about how we're going to set stuff up and what's going to be available. Like, we have to start talking about the TVs are going to be out, their monitors are going to be out there. There's going to have to be some sort of a HDMI to a laptop or a tablet, something that can broadcast our news out there. So,
yeah,
and
and we're going to talk to Lucas about that too. Lucas Jones says he can help with tech.
Yeah, I would really not like to be in charge of that. Just putting it out there on the recording. So that's out there. Okay, is there any other comments or thoughts or cute puppies that anything? And Zoe? Okay. All right.
Okay, I gotta go. Thanks. Keep it up. You're doing great.
All right, thanks, Joy. All right, so we talked about cinematography. Let us talk about the specifics about being the actual reporter. So we talked a little bit last time about some of the basics, and I don't think there's tons more that we can talk about as far as like the reporting. They have a lot of things that they're doing, which I'll go over really quickly right now. And well, if we have any other questions. First of all, they have their journalistic integrity. News reporters are responsible for delivering accurate and unbiased information to the public. This requires a commitment to journalistic ethics, including honesty, fairness, and transparency. Reporters must strive to present facts objectively without letting personal bias or opinions influence their reporting. So, number one, I want you guys all to remember every single aspect of every single one of these jobs that we talk about, they're going to cover their integrity. And that's an interesting thing because I'm going to go over some data a little bit later on. So research and investigation, they are in charge of actually they're not just the talking head in front of the camera, they're the ones that are actually going out there and investigating and doing the research. So there's a lot of behind the scenes. They are kind of the detectives of the news station. So they're the ones that are going out there and talking to their informants, trying to get information behind the scenes. They want to be trustworthy on the front a lot of the times because then people will come to them with information and they can get more information and then they can get the scoops. Reporters often need to conduct thorough research and investigation to uncover newsworthy stories. This involves digging deeper into various sources, verifying information, fact-checking to ensure accuracy. Strong research skills are essential for finding leads, gathering data, and uncovering the truth behind complex issues. So of all the jobs, the reporter's job is probably one of the most dangerous jobs because they have to put themselves in situations where they're gathering information maybe in not the most, the best circumstances. Interviewing skills. Interviewing is a fundamental aspect of reporting, whether it's talking to sources, experts, or eyewitnesses. Reporters need to ask probing questions, listen attentively, and follow up on leads to gather very valuable insights and quotes for their stories. If you like quotes, the reporters are the ones that are catching and collecting all those. Effective interviewing requires good communication skills, empathy, and the ability to build a rapport with diverse individuals. So if you hate all people with blue eyes, don't become a reporter. Storytelling and writing. Writing is the core of a reporter's job. Reporters must be able to write clear, concise, and engaging stories that capture the attention of the audience. This includes structuring articles in a coherent manner, crafting compelling headlines, and using language that is accessible to the target audience. Strong storytelling skills are essentials for presenting information in a compelling and memorable way. They also have deadline management. They news reporters that are on air and camera, they have the stories that they have to submit. Same thing goes for people who are writing stories for newspaper copy. So for the actual newspapers, they have to get all that stuff in on time. Here's one of my favorites: adaptability and flexibility. The news industry is constantly evolving with new technologies, platforms, and storytelling techniques emerging all the time. Reporters need to be adaptable and willing to embrace change, whether it's learning a new skill, adjusting to new formats, or covering a wide range of topics. So this is what I was talking about. Our team needs to be really flexible. Our reporters have got to be able to jump into whatever job that they're needed in the moment and then jump back out. So we need to be able to swap in and out a lot. So flexibility is the key to, there's a dynamic and unpredictable environment. Ethic decision-making. Reporters often encounter ethical dilemmas in their work, such as balancing the public's right to know with the privacy of the individual or deciding whether to publish sensitive information. Ethical decision-making requires careful consideration of the potential impact of one's actions and adherence to ethical guidelines and professional standards. So as a reporter, I could see, hey, it is true that this person did this horrible thing. They repented, they changed their life. Now they've moved on and they're doing this wonderful job. Jean Valjean, he's over here. He's got this factory. He's a law-abiding citizen. But years ago, he escaped from prison and didn't finish his prison sentence. If I feel as a reporter that is in the best interest of the public safety to out him and tell everybody about his story, then that has to be a choice I'm making. If I see that he is a reformed criminal and that his criminal background would only hurt a lot of people, I also have to take that into consideration. So there is a lot of moral choices that you have to make as a reporter as well. Media literacy and critical thinking. In today's digital age, news reports must be media literate and adapt at critically evaluating sources and information. They need to discern between credible sources and misinformation, fact check claims and provide context to help audience make informed judgments. Critical thinking skills are essential for analyzing complex issues and presenting accurate, well-rounded stories. I'm just reading a book, The Critical Thinkers, and it's very obvious that we all have our own biases in our heads, even without thinking, oh, I'm biased about this or I'm biased about that. Just because you have had an experience in your life, it will influence you to think, that is a consistent in that experience. That's the only one that I know. And so you can lean without even thinking about it towards one bias or another. So as a reporter, for ethical reasons, you need to make sure that you can be critically thinking and not take your own biases into consideration and not be a little more sarcastic with one situation than another. You know what I'm saying? Okay, everybody nod your head. Okay, excellent. Multimedia skills. With the rise of digital media, reporters are increasingly expected to have multimedia skills, including photography, video production, and social media management. Being proficient in a variety of multimedia tools and aspects of their life is essential. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions about our reporters? You guys all know everything, you got it, right? Oh, there was one last thing about reporters. They have community engagement is something else they have to think about. Building relationships with the community, that's important, mainly because the community is what gives them their information. A lot of times their information comes from sources within the community. They also need to make sure that they are credible with their community and their community feels a connection to the reporter, so they feel like if you're having a conversation with a friend, it's a much more trusted experience than if it's a stranger. So you've got to create that community sentiment between you and your audience. Okay, a lot of this is very similar when it comes to influencers. If you think about how influencers and reporters are the same, an influencer is somebody who is, and we'll talk about this on our next workshop. Influencers are people that know a particular topic, whether they're playing a video game and they're helping you understand the video game, or it's their first time playing a video game and you're learning, oh, this is what it looks like for a first timer to play this game. They can, but they do have information, things that they're sharing with you, but they have to be credible. You know, has anyone watched influencers that are trying to sell you something every other second of the day, and they lose credibility because you doubt whether or not they even like that coffee that they're drinking on that poster. Okay. All right. So if we have covered our two main things that we were going to cover, and I wanted to get through it pretty fast so that we could cover some other aspects to media that we're going to have to deal as a team together. So half of you guys are going to be in one TV station and the other half is going to be in another TV station. So we're going to have two different teams. And for right now, we're all working together, but I want us to start thinking about the future and how we're going to set up our TV stations. So let me grab, okay, we're going to cover that too. That's all of that. And then this one is over here. I've got like all sorts of different, okay. So in creating a news station, there's a lot of different things that we have to think about before, so that when we get to Yes Week, we are going to hit the ground running and we don't have to come up with a slogan for our news station. We don't have to come up with a name for our news station. We don't have to come up with any of those things. So I want you guys to start thinking about this kind of stuff, all right? And some of this stuff is definitely going to be something that we will handle taking care of, like Joy was talking about, maybe having Stuart help us get some stuff done, and Lucas also. For actually the hardware and the stuff that we're going to be using. But start thinking about the business in this aspect. Business planning, we need to, and if you think about it, we're not going to have to deal with a lot of this stuff, but I want us to cover it. Business planning and legal consideration for our news station. You have to define your target audience and your market niche. If our target audience is fairy tale characters, that's what our target audience is, and we need to start thinking, okay, how do we target this? Is the language different with fairy tale characters than it is in a different world and different world setting, right? You're developing a business plan, outlining your station's mission, goals, and revenue model. So are we a news station that's 100% about profit? Or we're going to go out there and we're going to make a lot of money and we're going to start more news stations across different kingdoms? And that's what our motto is, right? Or is our motto going to be, we know the truth and we're going to get it to you? Or is it going to be, you don't know what you're doing and we're going to tell you what to do? It just depends on what kind of station you want to create. Registering your business, getting your permits, we'll handle all that, so you guys don't have to worry about getting your permits. Setting up legal agreements such as contracts with advertisers, content providers, and employees. A lot of that kind of stuff. We can handle a lot of that stuff, but when it talks about setting up legal agreements, it's super important to think about everything that a reporter, cameraman, writer, influencer, what comes out of their mouth and what is out there forever for people to see and criticize and sue and all those kinds of things, it happens. I don't think it's going to happen at our Yes Week, but you never know. Whenever I say things aren't going to happen, somebody flushes something down the toilet and we have to start all over again. All right, infrastructure and equipment. We're going to have a room for our studios that's going to have a main center area that's going to be a common room. And then we're going to have 2 separate rooms on the end. If anyone's familiar with St. Giles, it is the Scholar Building, which is what we're going to be using for the media center. So it's going to be a large room in the center, which we'll be able to share and do our interviews, our debates, our live productions in front of a studio audience in that section there. And then the 2 rooms on the ends will be the working rooms for the studios. Make sense? So if you guys can imagine that, imagine within that room, we'll have set up computer stations and desks for writing and things like that. And those will be very private spaces because again, we have our stories that we want to keep the integrity of them separate from each other. And it's a competition, right? To see who can get that story out there soonest. And then a lot of our equipment and everything will be in the center section. All right, setting up the broadcast transmission system. Hopefully Stuart and Luke will be able to help us do that. As far as hiring our diverse team, that is going to come down to your audition tapes. So the audition tapes I talked about in the very beginning, we're going to do a collaborative effort with our legislative teams to create your audition tapes, meaning that you guys will need to start learning how to work together and recognize that you guys really are each other's best resources. So for example, for your audition tapes, you're going to be required to interview a politician and create some sort of a commercial for the politician themselves for their campaign, or a bill to educate about the bill that they are. Yes, here's one of our politicians right there. We have Abu with us, who is campaigning for, what is it you're campaigning for, Denver?
Committee chair.
Committee chair. Okay. So, so then you will, so on the 30th, hold on. Yeah, on April 30th is a non-workshop day, which means that it's not going to be a regular workshop where I'm going to be teaching a class. It's going to be a workshop where people from the legislature and people from the media get onto the Zoom call, and then you guys collaborate as far as who you want to interview and who you want to do your commercial with. So you will choose a different person. You can't use the same person to do the commercial and the interview. And then you will use that to showcase yourself as far as what you can do for the media. If you want to be a reporter, easy, you're going to be the one doing the interview. If you want to be the cameraman, you're going to show your cameraman skills. You can work together as media team members. So you can say, okay, I want to do this interview. Claire and Andrew are going to be the reporter and the cameraman, and you can decide amongst yourself who wants to do what and talk to each other, and then say, okay, we want to interview Denver for his interview, for his political interview, and then we're going to do a commercial for Cooper, who's running for the janitor. He's not running for any position. I'm just making that up. So do you see how that works? So you guys as the media are going to get together, create teams, and then do your interviews and do your commercial, which means you are going to be working on your editing and some other stuff like that. And we'll go over a little bit of the editing tricks in a minute. But I wanted to make sure you guys are starting to think about this, and you're welcome to talk to people before and start trying to set that up. But by the 30th, we want you to come onto that meeting, or at least let us know by the 30th who you're interviewing and who you're doing your commercial for and who's your team that you're going to be using for your media. Okay, start looking at each other, making eye contact. All right. Content development and editorial policies. You guys can clearly do that prior to Yes Week. We have on May 28th is our team building workshop. So a lot of the stuff we're going to be handling at that time, but start thinking about it now. What is it that you want your media outlet to the concepts, the goals, the missions, the strategies, how you're going to do certain things. Is that a kitty cat? Or we got a doggy and we got a kitty cat. All right. Also creating a workflow for content creation, editing, and approval. So you will each have an editor you'll be working with. Your editor is your mentor. I will be mentoring one news station and Derek Bohan will be mentoring the other news station. I couldn't choose. I think both of us are fabulous and it's going to be really hard to choose which station you want to be in, but it's going to be super awesome. I'm very excited. So we will have the ultimate, say, no say, as far as like the content and everything that goes out, but that's just life. You have to make your editors happy, and they're the ones that are making sure that everything happens on the backside that are supposed to happen. And so there you go. So, all right, so we'll talk a little bit more about some of the marketing, the promotion, the compliance standards, and the launch of operations when we get together and we start doing our team building. So just wanted you to start thinking about that. Here's something that's interesting. While I was doing some research for this class, I was going in and looking at some of the trust that people have in media, because I don't know about you guys, I watch a little bit of the news and I get discouraged and I turn it off because I just really don't know who's going to tell me the truth. And after reading the book with the critical thinkers, it's very apparent that most of the stuff, if I really want to find out if it's true, I'm going to have to do the hard work to go in and do all the research and figure it out for myself, because I can't trust somebody else to give me that information, right? All right, so we're going to talk about some global trends. According to Reuters Institute Digital News Report of 2021, trust in the news remains relatively low globally, with an average of 44% of respondents across 46 countries saying they trust most of the news most of the time. So you can see that it's not just here in the United States, that it is a global issue. Trust in the news varies by country, with the highest level of trust reported in countries like Finland, Poland, Switzerland, and the lowest in countries like the United States, Brazil, and France. So think about that for a second. We're in one of the lowest. In the United States, trust in the news media has been declining over the past few decades. According to the Gallup, trust in the mass media reached its peak in the late 1990s, with around 55% of Americans saying that they had a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the media. However, trust has since declined, with only about 36% expressing trust in 2021. And I'm sure if I went in and started doing some of the research since 2021, the trust in the media would go down even more after the COVID and all of that stuff. So, okay. It says that trust in media is highly polarized along political lines in the US, and with the Democrats generally expressing more trust in the news media than the Republicans. Interesting. All right, in Europe, the trust in the news varies across European countries, but overall levels of trust seem to be higher in compared to the United States. Finland, Norway, Sweden was the highest. But trust in the news, in Asia, I thought was interesting. Asia, with some countries reporting high levels of trust, others reporting low levels. Countries like South Korea, Japan tend to have relatively high levels of trust. In many Asian countries, social media and messaging apps play a significant role in news consumption, and trust in the information shared on these platforms can be lower compared to traditional media outlets. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I will tell you a story. When I was in South Korea, I was there actually during the presidential election. I left, I think it was like 5 days before the election, or no, maybe it was only 3 days. 3 days before the election. And I will tell you, they have the greatest election system ever. If we could do that in the United States, it would be so fabulous. First of all, what they do is a political campaign person, like let's say there's 3 people running for the president of the United States, which was the case. They give them a number and a color coordinating. So number 1 is green, number 2 is blue, and number 3 is red. So anytime you see a campaign situation, if it's green, you know that's number 1 campaign person, you know exactly who it is, right? Number 2, you know exactly who it is. Number 3, you know exactly who it is and which colors that, if there are people walking around and they have red on, you know exactly which campaign person that they represent. Then what the candidates do is they go and hire a very popular rock band or a country band or any kind of a band, and they hire them to write a song for that politician. And then they go around on these platform trucks and they blast this music through neighborhoods, and they just drive around, and they have these revivals where people will stop and they'll pile out of the cars and the trucks, and they will dance. They'll do hip hop dances. I've seen 60-year-olds literally doing hip hop dances on the side. I was so disappointed that I couldn't video it because I was too far away, but it was so funny. It was so funny. And they're out there singing and they're dancing and they're loving their politician. They get back in the truck and then they drive down the road and they do it again in the next block down. And it's fabulous. Like, there's no arguing, there's no complaining, there's no debating. It's a dance party. Like, who couldn't love electing somebody who lets you have a dance party? This is really fun. Anyway, okay. All right, let's get into, see how much time do we have? We've got about 20 minutes. All right, so before we, I'll get into something else if I have some time, but I did want to cover some editing techniques. Now, a lot of you guys have expressed interest in editing, which is super fun. And it's something you can do behind the scenes, which is great too. And hopefully we'll have some people who are skilled in editing, teaching some of us that are not skilled in editing, so that we can share a little bit of the knowledge amongst each other. I'm really excited about Stuart coming and doing some of this as well. But for a baseline, let's start talking about some of the techniques. So editing techniques, so there is different kinds of editing techniques. First of all, in our field with media in general, there's text editing. So that means that you're going to be proofreading and checking actual written word. The structure of editing, the copy of editing, the developmental editing, and fast checking. This is all things like structure, content, clarity, focus, consistency, style, the flow, coherence, sense, all of that kind of stuff with our text editing. Image editing, which is what I think everyone automatically goes to thinking about the image editing. You're talking about your cropping, removing unwanted parts of an image to improve composition, which we talked about earlier. Color correction and grading, adjusting the brightness, contrast, and color balance to enhance a visual appearance. This is where, again, we talked about that earlier. Color correction, if you wanted someone to look a little shady, all you have to do is color correct them and take their contrast down and create the gray on them so that their skin looks a little grayer and a little dingy. It's very easy to do and very subtle, and happens. Retouching, which is improving blemishes, wrinkles, or other imperfections. So you can make your candidate looking really, really good. Denver helped me put on a color or a make you look better video thing on my camera. And I said, turn it all the way up, man. I want to look as good as I can, right? Okay, resizing and rescaling, adjusting the dimensions of an image for a different purpose or platforms. So resizing, rescaling is our aspect ratio we're talking about. So changing our aspect ratio and creating different sentiments and feelings with those. Adding effects, this is applying our filters, filters, textures, and other artistic enhancements. So this is the fun stuff that goes across the screen. This is some subtitling. This is some POWs, some sound effects, things like that. Or actually, this is just the visual, but video editing also includes cutting and trimming, which is removing the unnecessary footage to tighten the narrative. So we're not going to take all of the information that we were brought in. We're going to cut and trim. Anyone who's done this or who's had it done knows that that's where a lot of the very interesting things can change between a story. So a story looks like it's a family that was victimized because of fire, but by the time you're done editing, it looks like they were having a bonfire and everybody was happy and having a great time, depending on how you cut and what you put together, right? Transitions are the smoothing of the transitions between the scenes and shots. I'm going to give you guys a little inside story into cinematography in movies. So there is a thing that is a technique. It's called cutting to the cat. And it's all of the cinematography people know it and they use it. And you'll see it now. If I tell you about it, you're going to notice it in all of the TV shows, all the movies. What it is when there's a scene change and you're making a big jump from one place to another and you need your brain to kind of stop, reset, and then recognize that you went to someplace else, they take a shot of something that is unrelated to anything. So that's why they call it a cat. They just say cut to the cat. And it could be a picture, could be a cat sitting on the side of the road, just licking its paw. And then all of a sudden now you're over here in this space, but it gave your brain a second to shift locations with you, which your brain needs to do. So unless your technique is to really get your brain crazy and then you shift back and forth all the time and you don't cut to the cat and then make sure, and that's a different technique, right? So, but cutting to the cat is just that moment that you that you give the brain of the person that's watching it a break so that they can recognize that they're someplace else. Adding effects. So this is visual effects, motion, graphics, and animations. So you've all seen videos where they're talking and then they refer to something and then all of a sudden it's a side screen or it's a full screen of the animation that they're talking about. And so you instantly have that reference. Oh, okay, he said it, but then here it is on the screen. I don't have to imagine it. It's right there for you, right? Color grading, enhancing or alternating the color palette for stylistic or thematic purposes. So let's say you're doing this beautiful love scene and the scene is a very, very cool scene. You got lots of blue tones and you think, no, this romantic scene, I really want it to warm it up. So I'm going to change my color palette to a warm, and I'm going to put all these gold tones in underneath so it feels warmer. There's a cinematographer that I know, his name is T.C. Christensen, does a lot of stuff for the church that I work, or the LDS church. And he is famous for doing his very, very warm feelings. He did Prophet of the Restoration movies, all those, and just creating that warmth in his color palette is what he's very famous for. All right, audio editing, adjusting the audio levels, adding music or sound effects, and synchronizing audio with video. This is something we love in editing, especially in my case where I was making musicals. To try to sync audio and video is so impossible. So instead of actually having people sing on set, we do a recording of the song that they're supposed to be singing so that it always stays in sync with the music. So we always keep it in sync, but it's still hard to cut and make sure that you have your audio and your video in sync. Also, everyone recognizes what it feels like when you add music to a video. Has anyone seen, there's the videos out there where they take the music out of, I don't know, I've seen the Frozen version where Elsa's singing, they take her song off, and they take away all of the background music and they just have her vocals singing as she's running around doing this. And it's ridiculous. Like it's not beautiful. It's not magical. It looks like she's running a marathon and singing at the same time and she's huffing and puffing. So without all the beautiful music and everything like that, it changes the whole feel of it. High School Musical. Yeah, that one's a fun one. Okay. All right. So then we have audio editing, which is trimming and cutting, removing unwanted sections or pauses, the volume adjustments, balancing audio levels and ensuring consistency, noise reductions. You're going to have problems because you're going to be talking to somebody and somebody in the background is going to sneeze or make some sort of sound, or you're going to hear a car. You're going to hear other things like that. I will tell you another cinematography trick is what they call is they record gray noise. So they will shoot a whole scene in a room, and then everybody leaves the room and the audio person stays with the boom and records 1.5 to 2 minutes of just the room sounds. Because you don't recognize that there's sounds that are happening in that room. There's air conditioning that's coming on. You hear the buzz from lights. You hear all sorts of different things that are naturally sounds in a room that are sounds in a room. If you take out completely and you edit and you want to, oh, I don't want to hear all of this background. So you cut out the audio. That completely void of all sounds is very unnatural, very disconcerting. So then they input that gray audio sound in those spaces so that you still hear sounds of the room, but they can still cut out the stuff that they don't want you to hear. Somebody sneezing, somebody, car horn going off in the background. They can cut that out, add the gray noise. You don't even know it's there. You're welcome. Adding effects, reverb, echo, equalization. All of those things are really fun. If you want to freak somebody out, you're interviewing that and then put a little reverb on them and then see if they can keep talking and keep their train of thought, if they can hear their voice inside their head and things like that. Mixing and mastering, balancing multiple audio tracks and optimizing the final output. You have your graphic layouts also with your type and your media, like your page media where you have your pictures and things like that. Logo designs, illustrations, and vectorization, which is creating vectors and stabilization for resolution, but that's just a little bit over my pay grade, so I don't know that much about that. So, okay, we have just a few minutes left. Sorry, I was going to try to leave you guys a little more time, but I didn't, but I really wanted to get all that information out there. Does anyone have any questions? Comments?
What can we do right now to practice for Thanksgiving? if we want to maybe like practice maybe like either video editing or camera work or like reporting, what can we do right now to
Okay.
just for that?
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Okay, so let's say I want to be a reporter and I say, okay, so I want to be a reporter. I'm going to go to somebody in my house and I'm going to say, hey, Claire, I know that you're really interested in this subject. Can I interview you about that subject? And then just start asking her questions and just do that back and forth feedback, back and forth. Okay, well, how do you feel about this? Do some reflective listening, learn about how to understand and reflect back and say, oh, so what you're saying is this and this, but what about, and that deeper questions. How do you go deeper? Ask the same question, then ask and practice. If you have a question that you really like, then ask that question 14 different ways with different angles and see if you can get other information, you know, just things like that. If you are wanting to be a camera person, go out and start videoing and recognizing the different shots. Do a pan shot where you're going to take it and slowly pan across the scene and keep your hand steady. It's a trick to be able to do that, right? And you're going to do a telephoto in, telephoto out. Start practicing with your phone and see what your phone can do now. Because if it's the only thing you have to work with, if the more familiar you are with it now, the better you will have in that moment when you need to use it, to be able to use it, right? If you are wanting to be a writer, then start looking into, okay, so if I'm going to be a writer, what is it that the writers have to do? And start figuring out, okay, well, the writers have to tell a story. So if I'm going to be telling a story and it only can be this long because that's about the attention span of my audience, what's the most important things for me to tell? Okay. Do I want to be a writer that tells really sensational stories, or do I want to be a writer who tells really emotional stories? You can have columns in your news that is the love story, and you can be the love reporter, and all you do is go out and find the couples at Yes Week and or make them up and interview them, and how did you meet, and oh, you're married, and how many children do you have? The family style. You can do the gossip column. There's lots of different things you can do. Just try, look out and start reading other articles and see if, yeah, that sounds good or that doesn't. As far as influencers, that's a really fun one. You can start practicing now. You don't have to go on air live, but get in front of your camera, start talking to your audience, start getting familiar with something. Try to think about, okay, what is it that I'm going to be representing? Am I going to be playing a video game? Am I going to be doing hair and makeup? Am I going to be teaching somebody about K-pop? Am I going to be, what is it that I have to share with other people that would be interesting for them to listen? Right? Okay, did that answer that question? Basically, just start doing what you want to try to do. And the more you do it in front of a camera, in front of other people, in front of just nobody, in front of your mirror, in front of your, wherever you're at, the more you do it, the easier it will become.
I have a question.
Yes, Sir Andrew.
So when do we get put into our groups, and how many people are supposed to get put into them, and do we get to choose
So
our news stations?
right. So the news stations, the editors are going to choose who they're going to have on their teams. So Derek and I will get together and we're going to be using those audition tapes to drill down on who we're going to have there. Obviously, I'm getting to know you guys here a little bit better than he is, so I, you know, can help divide safely. Having a choice would be nice, but when you get hired at a job, you don't get to choose who your coworkers are. So no, you don't get to choose. But I will tell you, if you do come and you say, listen, Andrew, I want to be a reporter and my camera person is Anna, and you present your teams together, most likely you would be probably put together in the same team. If I can see that you guys are, what's that?
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I also have one more question.
Yeah.
Do you guys get to decide the news station names?
Well, I am not deciding the news station name. I actually had 2 news station names that I had proposed and put on the media workbook that we're working out with behind the scenes with the whole SIM thing. But I'm not married to them for sure. I do have, the editors are already established characters. So we're already fairy tale characters, and I won't tell you who we're going to be yet, but we are already established fairy tale characters. But our characters don't necessarily dictate what the news station has to be named. So that can be in our team building. And when you guys are going to find out what
Sure.
team you're on is the audition tapes are due on the 14th of May. We'll probably announce the teams on the 21st of May, which again is not going to be a normal workshop class. It's probably going to just be a Zoom meeting long enough to announce the team members, let you guys start working together. So by the time we get to the 28th and we start doing the team building, that we've already got a little bit of our introductions over with. I am working on a play during Tech Week during the April 3rd, which is why we're not doing a workshop then. And then LBSHE, I'm going to be super busy doing that because I'm on charge of the vendors on the adult committee, and that's the May the 21st. So I'll be able to jump in, let you guys know who's on the what teams. If on the 14th, I've seen all the audition tapes and I've been with you this whole time and I know where you guys need to be and Derek's cool with it, we can announce it on the 15th and send emails out if that works too. I can't promise anything for sure that I would be available to do that, but as soon as I can know what teams and which stations you guys would be on, then I would definitely tell you. Okay. Anything else? Thank you guys all for coming. I know that you guys are taking time out of your schedule. I appreciate it. And asking questions is a really good part of being in the media. So Andrew, points to you and Nora. And so keep that in mind when you guys are coming to this class. These are kind of mini auditions too. So just so you know.
I mean, I was gonna ask when the audition tapes were due, but you already answered that. So
So you can say, oh, Sonia, you did such a great job. You even answered my questions before I even asked them. That's
Back.
awesome. Thank you. All
I
right.
mean,
Okay.
I have like 20 more questions. I have like 20 more questions I want to ask, but it'll take like forever to answer them. So I'm just going week by week.
That works. Okay. Keep track of your questions and then we'll try to cover them as we go. All right. So next week, the workshop is going to be on our anchor people, our copy people, which is our writers, and then it will be our influencers. Now, just remember, if you don't want to be an anchor person or any of those things, still come, because like I did today, we're going to cover a lot of that stuff and get done within a half an hour of that stuff. And I've got a lot more stuff to go over that applies to all of the media. So please come. And if you can't, please watch the videos so you can get caught up. And thanks for coming. Okay. See you guys.